Welcome back to The Long Way Home. I'm your host, Josh Bearheart Hawk, and it's been about a month and a half since I uploaded an episode. I wanted to get something out and just kind of talk about what's been going on and what's going on coming into next year. So the entire purpose of this podcast when I first started it was to kind of talk about life and growing up in the '90s and what kind of differences I see between the '90s and today, and some of the differences, some of the things I like about the present, some of the things I don't like about the present. Right now, there's a lot that I don't like about it. The last episode that I posted, we talked about AI and the world of tomorrow and where the internet's going. I've had a couple episodes talking about the internet and that kind of thing. And honestly, the entire idea behind this podcast in the first place, it's kind of drifted off, I think, a little bit from where I started. And it's about to drift off even more, I think, because the more I think about it and the more that I work on it, the more I realize that the idea behind the long way home, one of the things that I really like about podcasts is being able to drive around late at night. Maybe if I'm out, when I used to be out ghost hunting, that kind of stuff, or maybe just on a road trip, driving down the freeway. And I've listened to murder mysteries. I love horror kind of stuff and focusing on ghost stories and that kind of thing. So one of the things that I would like to do moving forward is kind of focus the podcast a little bit more on stories. So for those of you who don't know, I'm an author. I've got 3 books out at present, and I've got a few more in the works. And I'd like to share some things about those books, some things about how I approach writing horror, as well as deep dive into some more legends and that kind of stuff that would be perfect for listening to on a dark, dark night, maybe a dark, stormy night as you're driving around, or maybe as you're playing a video game or something, and you got the lights out and you're looking for something spooky to listen to. So, going into next year, 2025, January, February, probably around that time, I'm planning on starting up what's going to become season 2 of The Long Way Home. And it's going to be a completely new, I don't want to say completely new format. It will be a new format in the terms of there will be some scripted stuff that I read. There will be some more order and amongst the chaos that I have woven into this thing. At the moment, the biggest thing for me has been just, especially in the past month and a half, the reason I haven't uploaded anything new. There was the the election, and then I had so much else going on. I got busy, and then my son had been sick over the summer, and we found out in the past few weeks that he's going to need surgery in January. And there's been a lot going on with that. There's been a lot going on with my mental health that's been impacted between that and then just the internet in general, and being frustrated with certain things, like trying to get my content out there, trying to share stuff that's going to be interesting to people, that's going to catch people's attention, and realizing in the grand scheme of things that it's not about quality when it comes to the internet. It's about quantity for one, but it's also about luck. And so for me, I've beat myself up over time when I'll put stuff out there that I'm really proud of, especially when it comes to, I've got a YouTube channel where I do videos talking about legends and tales and the history of things around Ohio and that kind of thing. And when I put one of those videos out, and I'm really proud of it, and I'm really excited because I'm sharing something, and it doesn't go anywhere. And for a long time, my thought was, well, it's just people just don't like it. It's not good. I need to get better. And in reality, while we can all always improve, I can always get better. I'm not perfect at what I do. My stuff is good enough that people do like it. When people watch my Legends and Tales videos, when people read my books, GPS Signal Lost has only had a couple of people read it, but the ones that have absolutely loved it. The same thing with the journal. I've gotten some great reviews on the journal, some great reviews on Legends and Tales. So I've had people that have said, yeah, I really like what you're doing, but it's getting the volume up, and the volume is tied to, getting lucky enough to be shown or to be seen by enough people. And that's true whether it's a podcast or whether it's YouTube or whatever it happens to be. So all of that has built into my, I want to say, I guess my depression, my anxiety. I deal with Asperger's, which those are kind of coupled into the depression, anxiety are kind of part of having Asperger's, as well as social anxiety and that kind of stuff. So I don't have a big social circle. I'm kind of an introvert, and so all of that coupled with what's going on with my son and what's going on with the world in general, and how I'm scared for what's going to happen going into 2025, and with all of the political changes and all that kind of stuff, it's a terrifying thought to imagine what might happen out in the world. And while it's all stuff that is beyond my control, it's not something that I can actually do something about, it still bugs me. It's still something that I think about. And so as I've been thinking over the past few weeks about the podcast in general and what I wanted to do with it, I knew I wanted to keep it up because it's important to me. I do enjoy talking and sharing things with people and sharing stories. And I originally had planned on just kind of doing the podcast in general, and not really making many changes. But the more I thought about it, I was like, maybe I should try something a little bit different. And that something a little bit different is going to be sharing some more stories, sharing some more Legends and Tales type of stuff. So I just released a video over on YouTube that was covering something called the Hodag, which was a legend from Wisconsin that I'd never heard of, and I found on a random Reddit post just a brief mention of this thing. And so I started looking it up and researching it, and I found newspaper articles going back to the 1890s talking about this thing. It was an old lumberjack story, and I thought that was really cool. And while I'm sharing it on YouTube, I also would like to share some of those things as legends and really dig into them more on the podcast in a different format, because, the videos are 10, 15, 20 minutes long, depending on the legend. And that format for YouTube, I have to turn that into a more entertaining. I have to really, really visualize it and all that kind of stuff. But with the podcast being audio, I can go more in depth, and I can dive into more things. I can read more from the newspaper articles and stuff that I found and talk more about how I research those kind of things. So I think I'm going to start doing that moving into January. Like I said, January, February. I don't have a set date yet for the initial release of season 2. But when I do, I will be sharing that on probably YouTube, Facebook, Blue Sky, I think is the new one that's out there that I've recently joined. So I'm going to be sharing that as well. And while I know, there's not a ton of people right now that are hearing the podcast, there's not a ton of people that are necessarily even listening to this this update. But it is something that I wanted to talk about and get out there, because if you are listening, first of all, thanks. Thank you very much for listening and enjoying the podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you've listened to this point, I've got a lot of stuff out there, and there will be times that I will talk about some of the. I'll reference older stuff, like when my mom took us ghost hunting and that kind of stuff. But I really want to aim for a more spooky kind of vibe, a more, kind of digging in, and the kind of podcast that you can really dive into on a late night drive, or when you're playing a spooky game. Maybe you're playing Minecraft. I like to play Minecraft, and maybe you're playing Minecraft late at night and you want to listen to something spooky on the side. That's the kind of vibe that I'm going to go for moving forward in season 2. And we'll see how season 2 does, and if it takes off, if it does really well, that'll be the new format going forward. This is all an experiment. It's all trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what I enjoy doing, mixing with what people want to hear and what people are interested in. So that's all stuff that I'm going to be focusing on. Honestly, I feel like I've just talked out a lot of the nostalgia type of stuff. I've talked out a lot of the qualms about the modern day internet and that kind of stuff. And while I still have a bunch of stories I could talk about from when I was a kid, I think some of those stories would fit really well in this new kind of experimental format. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, Facebook, Blue Sky, at Josh Bearheart on all of those things. And you can follow me over there, and I will be announcing that kind of stuff. And when the new season's going to be dropping and whatnot, I might even do like a brief little promo or something like that for the new season, and just drop that in in the current podcast. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to do that, but I do want to thank you all. I hope you had a great 2024. Here's to hopefully a good 2025. We'll see how things go. But everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.